So when Dunaway was a little pup sportscaster in Lexington, he finished a distant second to Buzz Baker at WKYT. He is with us now on the JohnstonRVCenter.com hotline.
I wasn't in the rankings. I was a group of 5 sportscasters.
What's up, Buzz? How are you?
Stop it. You were not. Just stop that, will you?
I did have to come back to Alabama to go to a Final Four, though.
Oh, wow.
Wow. so you come off the top rope with that, right?
Yeah, that's
Well,
all right.
I was there in 1990 and 91. So
Make sure you have me back for the college football playoff this year, okay? Thank you.
Go Big Blue. So, man, hey, how interesting is it up there when Calipari and Barnhart are squaring off? What was that like?
I don't know that it was a square off. It was just one of those things that, it probably just needed to happen. And, it's, hey, this is a performance-based business, right? And I mean, I'm not just saying this, but nobody was ever better than that. The dang 4 decades I've been doing this than Nick. I mean, he'd lose coaches, he'd lose players, and man, he was the glue. And he understood what the expectations were. And with just a couple of rare exceptions, he delivered. And, that's, Cal was the guy that, got a little crossways with the fan base when he first came in and said, they brought me here to win national championships and not SEC championships. And all those people that were spending money to go to Nashville got twisted about that. But, it just has not been the same since 2019.
Well, since you bring up football, the college football playoff and Saban, I've always wondered the dynamic and relationship between Cal and Mark Stoops. It just doesn't seem like they liked each other. A couple of shots through the media. Is there anything deeper? How would you describe that relationship?
No, there's nothing deeper. But I mean, listen, Stoops is one of those angry little gingers, as my kids would say, from Youngstown, Ohio. And I mean, when you talk about a family of boys that used to play football and fight with each other, I mean, these guys, I mean, you've got Mark Stoops and Mike Stoops, and you've seen his YouTube on the same staff. So I think Mark just when Cal was talking that stuff, Mark just defended his guys, and I don't think it went any deeper than that. But that's just one of a number of things that came up during the Cal tenure. That if you're winning, that stuff's not all that important, right? But if you're not hitting the mark that everybody thinks you should, then those things kind of start steadily chipping away at your support, if that's fair.
Dave Baker is with us, WKYT. He's covered Kentucky for years and years. At Buzz Baker on Twitter is where you find him. He's on the JohnstonRVCenter.com hotline with us. I'm far more interested in who Kentucky is going to hire, and we are going to ask you, your thoughts on that. But I do want to say we're kind of divided. What Calipari is Arkansas getting? Is it Calipari that's just trying to hang on, or do you think he'll be reinvigorated by this move?
Well, that's a fair question. I mean, here's the deal, and here's some things he's got to square. And just for the record, I never had a bad moment with the guy. He's great for me to work with. We weren't buds or anything like that, but I got everything I needed to work with him. And in our job, that's all you can hope for, right? It's one of those deals where, he was out in front on the one and done and everything. Then COVID comes along, and then you get all this transfer portal and all this stuff, and everybody else in college basketball got older. And Kentucky continued to get younger. They not only got younger because they were still bringing in those freshmen, but as you guys know, all those freshmen started leaving school earlier, high school. So they were even younger freshmen when they got here, so they could do their year and then go to the NBA. And so what happened, I think, over the course of the last several years was kind of like, when I was growing up in the 70s, when we would send all those college all-star teams over to play basketball in the Olympics, and they were playing against 35-year-old Russian guys who were knocking back vodka and smoking cigarettes on the bench, right? It was men against boys. And so when NIL came out, Cal made the statement, and I'm sure he'll be asked about this today, but he said Kentucky is a transformational program and not a transactional program. Okay, and he really didn't jump into NIL. They've gotten a few guys. And so now one of the things that is apparently been a deal for him is the fact they're going to have more NIL money to work with. So, how do you square it? It's a weird deal. He's making $8.5 million here a year. He's guaranteed 33. I'm just looking at the contract details. He gets $1 million signing bonus, but he's going to be making $7 million a year with incentives. So I think that's a perfectly fair question about which Cal they're getting.
Yeah. For the record, I am the one that thinks they're getting end of career Cal. These two think that he has another great chapter in him. I do not. I don't think you leave Kentucky and write a better chapter than he wrote in Lexington.
Let me say this, and I think this is a fair comparison. You tell me if it's not. And I've always had and still have a great relationship with Bill Curry. But when Bill Curry came to Kentucky, there weren't a lot of people that, were angry about that in Alabama. Is that fair?
100%
yes,
fair, yes. In fact, I think they would have paid Kentucky to take him.
I mean, so that's going to be an interesting part of the dynamic. Can he recapture that magic? The game has just changed. And when you see guys, and I think this is completely fair, when you see guys like Saban, you see guys like Krzyzewski, you see guys like Roy Williams and Jay Williams getting out of the deal, man, it ain't like what it used to be.
Yeah. Where is his legacy? We talked about this, and I keep bringing up his first 6 years were A++.
Sure.
Yeah, the way this thing kind of crashed into the mountain and losing in the first round 2 of the last 3 years, I still said B+ overall. I mean, I don't know if you've got a letter grade you would give him and where he would stack amongst the great Kentucky coaches.
Well, he's obviously, I think he's second in wins now or whatever. And so, I think it's fair to point out in totality that this thing, Billy Gillispie left behind a dumpster fire. And, he really got that fixed. And I'm sure that Hunter Yurachek and those people at Arkansas looked at what happened then, and it kind of became a template. Because if you remember, he was hired really late. And it wasn't until after Billy was bounced out of the NIT that Kentucky went to work hiring somebody else. But he came in and he brought all those guys with him. Alabama, certainly was not happy at all. Mark Gottfried was not when he got Bledsoe, and he brings Cousins and he brings John Wall and all those guys that he's got committed to Kentucky. I think he will absolutely take those guys with him. Now that there's the transfer portal and you don't have to sit, how many guys that are currently on the roster will he take with him? So that will be a part of that legacy as well. But, Cal as a big picture coach, okay, I've kind of put it like this as I look back at Kentucky coaches that I have covered. I think Cal is the best big picture guy. I think that Pitino was the best guy in terms of preparation. And I think that Tubby was the best guy in terms of game adjustments. And everybody's got their strengths and their weaknesses. But Cal was not a great X and O guy. And he got to 3 other Final Fours. And there would be a lot of people that tell you, they were 1 or 2 moves away from winning more than they did early on. So I think it's still, to be determined. He's obviously a Hall of Fame coach because of his entire body of work. But, it's just really weird. People have kind of softened on Pitino. He was out at the racetrack Sunday afternoon, rolling around in his New England outfit. And he really got the business. I mean, people were just crazy when he went to Louisville. But let's not forget there were a couple of years in between when he left for the Celtics. Okay. Now, what's it going to be like, Jim? You've been there in Rupp Arena next year when Cal comes rolling in some red coat.
Yeah. Hey, we were in Baton Rouge when Nick rolled in his first game for Alabama down in Baton Rouge. They were burning him in effigy and throwing rocks at the bus.
But again, he had the time in Miami in between that.
Yeah.
It didn't happen the very next year when the scab was still off.
Go ahead and circle that date.
Yeah, I know. It'll be on ESPN.
I hope it's a Saturday. Game day will be there. Yeah, it'll be good. Yeah.
I agree. So,
have you guys come up with your drinking game yet for tomorrow after tonight's news conference?
Do you think he'll call the Hogs? You think he will do that awkward calling of the Hogs?
I don't know what the number is, but I would take the under.
I would too.
Real big.
I would
real big. But you hear a lot of, you people are crazy. These kids aren't robots. You'll probably hear some basketball bennies. I mean, you could put up a whole square game, and have your listeners meet you at some sponsored place tonight at 7:00 Eastern when they do the news conference, and you could have a heck of a drinking game.
Yeah. Hey, I want to ask you real quickly before we get
Yes.
to who's going to get the Kentucky job. But on the day of the national championship, I had a couple of really good sources telling me that Kentucky people were kicking the tires back channel on Nate Oates. And you do that when there's a coaching opening. You start get feelers out for 3, 4, 5 guys that are on your list. Why do you think Nate Oates was so attractive to some Kentucky people when this job was apparently going to come open? Do you think would it be popular among Kentucky fans?
Well, fans are fans, right? And I mean, it's really interesting. There's really only been one Kentucky coach that has been able to walk away completely on his own terms, and that would be Pitino. Okay, if you go back and look, Adolph Rupp didn't want to retire, but there was a mandatory state retirement age. He kept an office, in Memorial Coliseum right down the hall from Joe B when he was a coach and trying to escape that shadow. Joe B, kind of hit some difficult times, and it was very difficult replacing that legend. And so, we know what happened with Eddie Sutton, and then at the end of the Tubby tenure, people had really, they thought he was a great coach, but he didn't recruit enough, did too much in the community. I think they saw, it's a young guy, a guy that played an exciting brand of basketball, a guy that. And I haven't been around him very much at all, if any. Seems to be really kind of humble. Goes about his business, and Cal was, was the big guy. He was the big elephant in the room, and so I think all those things, the way they shot the threes, I think a lot of people were enamored with that. But here's what I would say, Jim, and you guys understand this now. The money is just so good now that, okay, Kentucky's going to pay you $9 million. Okay, if you're Nate Oates and you got your quality of life and you can go around and just be normal with your family or whatever and make what, 4, 5, or $5 million in Tuscaloosa?
Not anymore, man.
Dude, that ain't a bad gig, right?
Not anymore. Paying $6 million now in Tuscaloosa.
And it's only going up for him.
Is it 6? But I mean, seriously. But I mean, is that $3 million enough to take you away from a good thing and get into a good thing here? Excuse me. I think a lot of people are circling the wagons right now on Scott Drew. And that's simply because of relationships. I think he's done a good job. But during the COVID NCAA tournament where they were in the bubble in Indianapolis for a month, Mitch Barnhart was the chairman of the selections committee. And the team that he was assigned to be with was Baylor. And so those two guys kind of struck up a deal. But again, by all accounts, he's the mayor of Waco, and, do you want to come and get involved in a place like Lexington? Even Cal, as much as he likes the limelight and everything, you haven't seen him go back to a big market after the New Jersey Nets thing. I mean, I think that media and that stuff just kind of pummeled him a little bit, so he goes, what does he go? He goes Memphis, Lexington, Fayetteville. So I think it's going to be real interesting. I think money's not going to be an issue, but just like what you guys went through a little while ago, I mean, Alabama's a great job. It's a wonderful university. Greg Byrne is a great friend of mine who used to live around the corner. But I mean, dude, who wants to walk in and follow St. Nick? I mean, it's a fair question.
So I think an obvious name is Dan Hurley. Why would he leave, though? He's just won back-to-back championships. It's Kentucky. The money's going to be more. I would think NIL is going to be much better. And then the other guy that's got baggage who apparently turned down Arkansas, and I think he's one of the best coaches in college basketball, that's Chris Beard. Can they get past the baggage on Beard? Would that be a possibility? And do you think Hurley is a guy they will target as well?
I would say this, because of fan base and some other people, I would not be surprised if Mitch didn't reach out to Hurley. That way he would be able to say, or I'm sorry, insulate himself from somebody saying, why didn't you go after the best? He was clearly the best guy available. And we're, as Calipari said, this program is supposed to be the gold standard, right? So why wouldn't you go after him? He's a New England guy through and through. I understand Bobby's out in Arizona now, but his dad had that legendary career at St. Anthony's up there in New Jersey. He said the other night when somebody asked him about it, he said, "Dude, I can't afford to get divorced right now. I'm just now starting to make some money." His wife is New England through and through, and the dude don't need the NIL money. Do you know in that game the other night, Purdue and UConn, they had 1 5-star between the two lineups.
Wow.
1 5-star. I mean, those dudes can coach. So I wouldn't be surprised if they didn't make a run at him just to say that they did. I don't know about Beard. Sean Miller was a guy who caught Cal's eye before all the stuff happened out at Arizona. And I haven't talked to anybody or anything, but Bruce Pearl made some really interesting comments about Kentucky after they played this year. I mean, you could go back and pull those, and remember he said, "Our fans want us to think that we're a Kentucky and we're not a Kentucky." I mean, I don't know who is out there now without baggage. If you remember, there were a lot of people, and I think it was I think it was the late Mike Slive, who had been in Conference USA that time, and he was kind of the guy that gave Kentucky the A-OK on Cal. And there were a lot of people that thought because of what had happened to him previously, that in a short period of time, he would have Kentucky on probation. So, it is not as open and shut a case as it used to be even 5 years ago. I don't.
He is Dave Baker, Buzz Baker. A lot of people in our chat room on the video say it's good to hear your voice again. They loved you doing football back in the day. So,
good. We love doing it. How about this? Now that we've got like 95 different teams in the SEC, and you don't have all those outlets to show them on anymore, I think what you do is you create a throwback channel.
Amen.
And we go ahead and do one SEC game every week as the JP game of the week. We use the old graphics, old uniforms.
Let's do it.
We can tip it. We can kick it at 11 in the morning. Let's go.
3 Daves. Get all the Daves back together.
I'll sign right up for it. I love it. I love it. Great idea, Buzz. Yeah. Tell me where to.
Let's go.
Yeah. All right, he is Buzz Baker. Thank you very much for the time, Buzz. We greatly do appreciate it.
Yeah. Guys, great visiting with you. I'll stop down and see you and hit you up for a meal on the next trip down to Sandestin.
You got it.
Hey, please do. And if we ever do that, if we ever have you on again, we'll get a marching band to be playing halftime right behind you.
Right behind me.
Yeah.
That's one of the great stories. Okay, you got time for it?
Shoot, yeah.
We own this platform. Yeah. We got all day.
Okay. So we're doing a game at. There are two things that happen. So doing sideline stuff, all of a sudden we're doing a game at Auburn, and and we've still got this footage, and they let out the eagle, and it was Spirit. And the guy who used to run the Raptor Center at Auburn is a guy named Roy Crow. How about that? It's a real name. And his parents actually live up here in Berea, Kentucky. And so we got connected with him, and so he could come up and see mom and dad. It didn't cost him as much. We would set up 2 or 3 elementary school gigs for him, and he would bring the birds from the Raptor Center up here. So I was familiar with the birds, and so they let Spirit loose, and I'm on the air live, and they're circling and circling and circling, and all of a sudden Spirit comes circling around, and I'm like, holy God, what is this? And this bird got disoriented and landed on the director's chair right next to him. And this thing is powerful. And I've got really big ears. And I'm thinking, this bird is going to lop off one of my ears unless somebody comes over and gets it. So that's the first one. The second one is we're doing a game at Tennessee. And they're honoring Reggie White. And, an emotional thing and everything. And his family's there and everything. And, all these schools have the timing sheet. And the Tennessee band, they're very buttoned up. And I can't remember who the director was at that time. But people are getting off the field, and it's time for them to start, and he goes ahead and starts. And, I mean, he's yelling at these band people, "Run! It's our field! It's our field!" And I'm like, are you kidding me? And, I mean, I thought we were going to have like fisticuffs between football players and the band guys right there. And it became a big thing. I was driving back to Lexington. I got a few calls. What in the world happened? So if you bring the marching band, just make sure that they're under control.
It's our field.
Okay, will you Rockstar, did you send him the link from your email address?
I did.
If you ever get time, today, tomorrow, anytime, send us that video you have of the Raptor landing on the chair. We'd love to show it at some point.
I'll get it for the boys in Charlotte. Now, let me ask you a question, one final thing. So does Rockstar have tax problems or something? I mean, why is Rockstar only known as Rockstar?
I am a very amateur geologist coming up, and I know a lot about igneous specimens. No, I'm a musician that I do. My second job is rocking shredding faces.
He plays a lot of local gigs and plays with some traveling bands, and Lance nicknamed him that because Rockstar is the exact opposite of a rock star.
Right. He's
What
an introvert.
kind of music do they play?
Well, he plays everything.
I do everything.
He plays everything, but he's really good in.
You want some Lawrence Welk?
He's really good
Wonderful,
early 90s,
wonderful,
early 90s.
wonderful.
Wonderful. So they've got a group called Black Jacket Symphony. It's an amazing idea where they put a band together, Buzz, and they'll pick an album like Rockstar. Give me a couple examples. Yeah, they did Pearl Jam 10. Pearl Jam 10. They'll do Beatles. What Beatles?
Currently, they're on tour with. They're doing Prince's Purple Rain. So what they do is they find a person that can do Prince. It's not a tribute band. We don't dress like him. We all wear black, but we do Purple Rain from the first song to the last in order. No talking. It's the note for note performance of the album, and then we take like a 15, 20-minute intermission, come back on stage, and then it's a party where they do Prince's greatest hits, where it's kind of like they can participate with the audience. But the first part of the show is we are playing. You're closing your eyes and you're listening to that album live.
Where did y'all play in Lexington? You were in Lexington on the tour.
We did 2 shows in Lexington. I cannot remember where it was. It's a theater we've done.
Yeah, it's downtown, the downtown theater in Lexington. Yeah. What's that little theater right
there?
there?
Either the Kentucky Theater or the Manchester Music Hall.
It may be that. Yeah, we've done a double there. It's really fun, and that's a great great audience. We use doubles. We have to do like a 4:00 show and an 8:00 show. So Lexington's always been fun. Yeah.
Yeah. I think this is the one right off of Commonwealth and Man of War. I'm just remembering. I'm just remembering street addresses from a lifetime ago. Yeah.
And of course, I'll let you guys go. But the best one as far as coaching searches is Jim's mentor, Alan Cutler, who, when Billy Gillispie was on his way out, they couldn't. It's like a guy in the NFL who was going to get cut. They couldn't fire him because they couldn't find him. And so finally, he shows up at the Coliseum. And he's doing like all these politicians do up on Capitol Hill now. My daughter works up there. And, when they don't want to talk to the media or something, they act like they're talking on the phone. And so Billy is acting like he's talking on the phone, and Cutler and another guy are following him. And Billy takes off on a jog. Yep. And Cutler takes off running after him. And so when Calipari comes for the welcoming news conference, the first thing he says is, "Did you really chase that guy?"
I remember us playing the video, and Dunaway's like, "Y'all will not believe this sportscaster. Like, I can't tell you. I'll tell you stories about this guy. Y'all will not believe it. But he is cut out of a different cloth. He is unlike any other. This Alan Cutler guy.
I've told him Alan Cutler stories for 14 years, and Tubby Smith was sitting right behind me at the Final Four out in Phoenix. He was on that first row right there courtside. Yeah. And at halftime, I'm walking by, and he's sitting down, and I go, "Coach Smith, you will not remember me. I'm Jim Dunaway. I worked up in Lexington 1990 and 1991. You were always so nice to me. Thank you for being so nice to me." And he was like, "Really? Where did you work?" And I said, "WLEX." And he went, "Alan Cutler."
There you go.
I said, "Yes,
there
sir."
You go.
And he says, shook his head and he said, "Well, nice seeing you again."
That's funny.
Boys, just remember, if you can get one, is sports gaming legal in Alabama?
Of course,
not yet.
Kind of support your local bookie.
Yeah.
Yeah, we all do that.
I'd find out what the over/under is on him calling the Hogs. They sent out a screenshot today. They're calling it Cal the Hogs. I mean, are you kidding me? I mean, come on.
I believe if they wait long enough, they'll be able to stack many L's after Cal to get the spelling right again.
Very good.
It's Jim Dunaway, ladies and gentlemen. You can reach him at 202.
Thank you, Buzz.
Thank you, Buzz. Take care.
See you, boys. Have a great day.
All right, you too. Buzz with us on the JohnstonRVCenter.com hotline.